It is without a doubt evil. And I believe as Americans, we must look evil in the eye and take it down. We must stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel as they eradicate Hamas terrorists. These terrorists don't care. They don't care how many men they kill, how many women they rape, how many children they kidnap. If you haven't watched the video of the children, the toddlers, the babies being held by terrorists, them using them as human shields, go watch it. If you haven't listened to the reporters tell about walking in to the place where these atrocities happened, them giving their recount of what they saw, what it felt like, go watch it. We cannot turn a blind eye to evil. We must stand firm with Israel. And I am hopeful that the Biden administration will do much more than just refreezing the $6 billion that is headed to Iran. We know what to do. We've got to squeeze out any type of financial resources they're getting through that, through also working with our G7 colleagues to make sure that we return to a posture of maximum pressure, bone-crushing sanctions, drying up each and every dollar that is headed to their hands. We know that Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terrorists. We know that. We know they have told us that their goal is to wipe Israel off the face of this earth. We need our leaders to stand firm in calling them accountable, and then knowing that Hamas not only wants to wipe out Israel, but has said that they want to wipe out the Jewish people. To all of the
All right, so that was just a little bit ago from Senate Republicans talking about wanting the Biden administration to freeze that $6 billion given to Iran in that prisoner swap not too long ago. Hi, everyone. Mike Pace here. Thanks so much again for joining us here, as always, on Live Now from Fox, where we continue to bring you top stories and headlines from across the globe. And we're really concentrating once again on the conflict there in Israel and really the path home for Americans that are still in Israel. I do want to show you, this was by Governor Ron DeSantis just a day ago, saying that we are getting ready to welcome hundreds of people who were stuck in Israel back to the United States of America. That has since been happening and will continue to happen here. So to get a little bit more insight about that and so much more, we bring in a special guest here on Live Now from Fox. This is Bernie Jacques, a Florida House of Representative, Republican. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's talk about the big news here that more Americans coming back to Florida there from Israel. This must be such a difficult time and logistically for all of this to happen.
It certainly is a difficult time for those who are impacted, and the state of Florida is very much impacted. We have a very large Jewish American population here within our state. And so when this was occurring, a lot of us who are policymakers, elected officials here in the state, were immediately thinking about constituents of ours, Floridians, who might have family members abroad in Israel. They're right there in the crossfire. And so we knew we had to act. And in fact, immediately after the weekend of those events, when the terrorist attacks occurred, I immediately instructed my staff to be by the phones and make sure that we are fielding any kind of constituents who have family members who are now stuck in a war zone, so we can be very responsive. And thank God we have a governor like Ron DeSantis, because he took action in a very bold way, allowing money to be freed up through an executive order to send flights to Israel to rescue Americans who are caught in that war zone, to bring them back here to the state of Florida. And that first flight did come Sunday night. And the governor did welcome them there at Tampa International Airport. Around 300 Americans back on American soil, totally relieved to get out of an active war zone.
Yeah, I just can't imagine what that moment must be like when you're coming back after things have just definitely shifted there in the Middle East, and times are really, really uncertain there in Israel and Gaza. But to see again American soil there, and knowing that you're coming back to a safe place like Florida has to mean all the world there. And in a world that we live in where we feel very much connected because of our cell phones and everything, but still, when you are abroad, it's a different feeling than being at home.
Absolutely, it certainly is. And there's always an uneasiness about being away from home. And you add a terrorist attack on top of that, and you add an active war, full-scale war on top of that. So you can imagine the just the angst and just the frustration of those who were stuck in Israel. And you compare that to, say, the Biden administration. They were the State Department there. They were doing flights, but it's totally different, where they were asking Americans to basically pay. You have to pay to get on those flights. And then the flights don't even take you back to America. They take you to Europe. And then you have to, I guess, find your own way back. In Florida, we took a different decision. We're going to go directly to you. It's not going to cost you anything. We're going to bring you back to your homeland here in the United States of America. And so we are very proud of the action the governor took. This is part of money that the legislature, we appropriated to allow some flexibility for emergencies such as this. And what greater emergency is there when you have Floridians and Americans stuck in an active war zone? So we're very proud of the governor for the action that he took there. I mentioned we had around 300 Americans, but also some pets. Some dogs were on that flight as well. And so we're thrilled. And there's more flights to come. And certainly we will not leave Americans behind. And I hope Biden understands that as well. Leave no American behind. Do what you have to do to make sure Americans get back home safely on American soil.
And where do you think that kind of really discrepancy is, like you mentioned there, with the U.S. federal flights? You were going not directly home, but you had to go to Europe and then find your own way here with Florida. You go directly to Florida. You would think it would be harder from a state level to do a direct flight, but for the federal government, it seemed like it would be more easy. Why is there this whole issue of we'll get you home, but it won't be direct?
It comes down to leadership, right? Governor DeSantis has demonstrated leadership time and time again, decisive, bold leadership, doing what he has to do. And also, Florida is a disaster response type of state, right? Where we're all well too accustomed to natural disasters like hurricanes, where our Division of Emergency Management, who is heading all of this up, is very finely well-tuned to address emergencies. So we have the infrastructure to be able to be nimble and do these type of things. But it does come down to bold leadership, whether or not the executive is going to exhaust all options to make sure to get through. I mean, this was nothing. This was not a simple task, right? So not only directly into Israel, the governor had to work with the Israeli officials to allow these individuals to get out. Commercial flights were suspended, right? And so we had to verify who these individuals are and a lot of different things. And all of them that were brought back were Americans. So it's an impressive thing to accomplish, but it's not one that cannot be accomplished without the right leadership. And certainly we have the right leadership here in Florida.
And lastly, we all saw what happened in Afghanistan and the tragic pullout that occurred there with Americans dying just days before the official pullout. And you would think when you saw that in the past there, the Biden administration would want to be more full force and get as many out super fast and directly.
Right, you would think so, but here we are, and they certainly have not learned one bit from the botched withdrawal in Afghanistan. And speaking of the withdrawal in Afghanistan, one of the groups, so we know the federal government botched that whole withdrawal, but we had a lot of private citizens. A lot of them were veterans who have organizations that were going in places like Afghanistan and rescuing these Americans. One of these organizations is based out of my area, in the Tampa Bay area, called Project Dynamo. And they were the partner in these flights, out of Israel that was involved with, because they have a proven track record. They've already rescued hundreds out of Afghanistan of Americans who were in Afghanistan because of that botched withdrawal. And so when they were headed on a flight, I was telling constituents, in fact, the last time I was on air with you all, I mentioned Project Dynamo because they have a proven track record, but it shouldn't be left up to private citizens and nonprofits to be doing this, right? Where is our federal government to really do right by the American citizens, the ones that they are here to serve? You cannot leave your American citizens in war zones totally left to fend for themselves and to pay their own way. That's simply wrong. Governor DeSantis had a different idea on the matter. He acted on it, and more Americans are going to come back home because of that decisive action.
There we go. Thank you so much for coming on here, Bernie, and we really, really appreciate it here on Live Now from Fox, giving us great insight on how the DeSantis team, as well as really all of Florida leadership, is bringing Americans back home. We appreciate it, as always.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care. And of course, we always got you covered here on Live Now from Fox. We are going to take a 2-minute break right here and continue our coverage on the conflict in Israel right here on Live Now from Fox.
To stop unless if it doesn't stop, you will be attacked. I mean, this is the only way this is going to end. And their goal is to destroy Israel, destroy every Jew, and destroy every American. We have 30 Americans died. We've got Americans held hostage. This administration needs to show up and start worrying about the people, spend more time worrying about Americans and Israel than it does about having some relationship with Iran and the Palestinians. It's disgusting what this administration is doing.
Well, look, the White House